My wife constantly tells me that I ruined her life and embarrassed me at a family dinner, saying that no one would want me, so I ruined her life for real. Plus all updates. I try to do my best to provide for my wife and 2 kids as well as my mother-in-law, and would like to think I'm doing a decent job. Over the years, I worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's and recently master's in a STEM-related degree, I at the same time worked 2 full-time jobs and put my wife through school as well. She completed a degree where she could make good money in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. But with the birth of our 2 kids, she has since gave up on her career to be a SOM for the time being. At first it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's. Once I completed it, after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump up and we are now able to afford our single-income household in a more feasible manner. We're far from rich but do okay for a single-income family of 4. The past year life was overwhelming for my wife, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with 1 child while the other is in school now. My day starts every day around 5:36 am. I get the house ready for the day before the nanny comes at 8 am. I get our oldest up and ready for school, breakfast made, and plan out my day, bring our oldest to drop off, and be home in time to let the nanny in. My most recent task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I am now 100% WFH. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role manages teams on a global scale as I oversee projects from my industry. For the past 12 months, I realized, my wife, as much as she says her life is stressful at home, starts at 10 am. I asked my mother-in-law and nanny if this was always the case after a week or so of WFH, and they both responded more or less, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife literally wakes up and cooks and then scrolls through her phone or shops from home, which brings me to my gripe. I am glad I am able to provide her that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I manage the house's finances. She claims she was too busy to do so, pay all the household bills. I pay my own personal bills. I pay her bills, track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances, car, pets, and I also help pay for my Mills medical bills and car note. But apparently my life is on easy street compared to hers. I can't decompress to her because it seems like she always feels the need to one-up me. I had a bad day. But she had it worse, cause I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life, her opportunities, but when I reminded her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. And honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny Monday to Friday, for 1 toddler while another child is at school, can you honestly tell me she's having the typical SOM experience? Because neither my friends or colleagues who are single parents can say she is. Update: I showed my wife my post the following weekend and she read it and all the comments. Long story short, argument, she left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. She came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing's changed. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off, so she just decided that it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team, and I couldn't just jump off as this is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess that didn't sit well with her because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink as I've been doing for the past nights, and my wife came in. We talked. We argued. We cried. We drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. It was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that and buy this or do that and not stress as much as they did. How easy my and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers, even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife: well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy. Me: so when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, FK me, get over it, right? Wife: we all have our own problems, you need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. Update 2. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame. Tears. Regrets. Gaslighting. With a side of I am the reason for her life being ruined and horrible. Again. Just this time in front of a licensed therapist instead of Reddit or mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and ignored as it was against the grain of her status quo. One thing I guess worth saying was the therapist asked if she could recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 or so years ago. Please note, 12 years ago she was still in her 20s. Childless. Living with her ex. The following weekend was Father's Day, and this year, as expected, not that big of a celebration as it is for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a barbecue and just simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in. Get up. Cook. Phone. Shop. Attempt to play with kids. Phone. During said family barbecue, my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family as a whole made the experience enjoyable. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities, and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway, I could have gone instead." At that moment I was red and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she said in my head, while the dining room went dead silent. My mother-in-law broke the awkwardness and in response said, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my mother-in-law confused that she would respond with that and laughed mockingly in my direction, and with her hand pointing at me said, "As if another woman would want a man like him? Just look at you." While the room sat silent. I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up, and picked up my keys and got in my truck and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras, but when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6, got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off. Checked emails. Checked messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife laid in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had. And now lost. I've decided. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home. She had, I guess what you could call a mini meltdown, and came into my office screaming how could I do this to her? Her mother intervened, and that was met with me supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress. I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt. But she's made many attempts, and historically we fall back to where we've been. For those curious, I am aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. My mother-in-law has given me the courage and strength that helps supplement my own mother's support throughout this. Basically, she is what I hope the kind of mother/wife my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my mother-in-law as well as per my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to help oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. All in all, I'm prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean no-fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming.